Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 12 on the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party. And this video, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about 1923 and the Bavarian city of Munich, because this video is looking at Hitler's Munich Beer Hall Putsch. Putsch, a German word for attempted takeover. So what was Hitler doing down in Munich in 1923? Well, here's the background. Long term, let's go back 5 years, end of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, the idea that the German army had been stabbed in the back. Here are some of the feelings that Hitler had, and he carried them forward. So they're long-term reasons why Hitler tried to take over. Medium term, just the year before, 1922, Hitler had seen somebody in Italy, a man called Benito Mussolini. And Mussolini, like Hitler, a right-wing nationalist, he had marched on Rome with his political party. And in Italy, Mussolini had become the leader of Italy. And Hitler looked at that example and thought, why don't I do the same here in Germany? So there's that pushing him forward, medium-term reasons. And in the short term, what had just been going on in Germany in 1922 and 1923? Can you remember? Well, I hope you'd remembered about hyperinflation and the German currency, the Deutschmark, being absolutely worthless, people losing their savings. I hope you'd remembered the French invasion or the French occupation of the Ruhr, events that Hitler and his followers hated. So if you put all of those factors together, Adolf Hitler decided 1923 was the time where he was going to try to take control of Germany. And he started in the local area where his Nazi party was the strongest, down in the south of Germany, in a region called Bavaria, and the city of Munich. So what did he actually do? Well, he had a plan. He said, right, if I get the local leaders on my side, 3 men in particular, Gustav von Kahr, state governor of Bavaria, a man called Caesar, head of the Bavarian police, and a man called von Lossow, head of the army in Bavaria. Hitler thought, if I can get those 3 supporting me, I will have a good chance of succeeding in my putsch or my takeover. So that's the plan. What actually happened? Well, Hitler thought, right, I'll take Munich, get my support organised, and then I will march to Berlin and take over, just the same way that Mussolini had marched to Rome to take over. So that's the background. They're the reasons why Hitler decided to do it. He also, of course, thought, I need the support of stronger people in the German army. A man called Ludendorff, an old World War I hero. I'll mention him later in this video. So, what actually happened? The events of the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. 8th of November 1923. Hitler and about 600 Nazis enter the Bürgerbrau Keller, a beer hall down in Munich. That's where the 3 leaders, remember, von Kahr, von Lossow and Caesar, that's where they were. Hitler probably thought, right, von Kahr, you can drive my plan forward. Sorry about that. But as we'll see, the car was on the wrong road. It was on the right road to nowhere. Right, stop that. I apologise. So, 8th of November, Hitler and his followers move into the beer hall. Hitler fires a shot from his pistol into the ceiling, and they take control. Now, obviously, there's the meetings between Hitler and the three leaders, and the three leaders agree to support Hitler. That's good for Hitler and the Nazi Party. However, during the evening, during the night, they escape or they are released. All three are no longer in the beer hall. As soon as all three are released, they turn against Hitler. They withdraw their support from Hitler. That would be a body blow. Could Hitler and his Nazi Party take over without the support of the state governor, the head of the police, and the head of the army? What do you think? Maybe not. So, on the 9th of November, the next day, Hitler and his 600 Nazis, and they're joined by local SA, the Sturmabteilung, the stormtroopers, the brown shirts. So some of the SA join Hitler, and also some of their local supporters join Hitler. So by now there's maybe a crowd of 2,000, 3,000. And Hitler and his men have got 2,000 rifles. So they are armed. Hitler decides, despite the fact that he's lost the support of the three leaders, Hitler decides that he's still going to try to take over Munich. So he leaves the beer hall and they march through the streets of Munich, heading for the main square. As they turn a corner on the way, they are blocked. They are barricaded. The local police, the local militia, the local army are there, blocking them, waiting for them. This is a key point. Not only did the local people in Munich just ignore them, and what are you doing? We're not going to support you. So Hitler hasn't got the support of many of the people, but also the local police and the army actually move against him. The Nazis walk right up, so there's a standoff between the army, the police and the Nazis. What would happen? Well, there's a bit of shouting, arguing, jostling. All of a sudden, somebody fired a shot. We still do not know who fired the shot first. Others then joined in. As a result of the gunfire, 16 Nazis were killed and 4 police officers were killed. In the melee, in the fracas, in the sort of pushing and shoving, somebody pulls Hitler, he falls to the ground and he dislocates his left shoulder, his arm here. And then Hitler is either led away or runs away. Well, the Munich Beer Hall Putsch seems to have failed. The Nazis have fled. The police and the army have forced them away. Hitler is later arrested the 11th of November 1923, exactly 5 years after the end of World War I. Hitler was arrested. He was hiding in a wardrobe. It doesn't look here, does it really, as if this is the man who's going to succeed and going to lead Germany, hiding in a wardrobe, and he's arrested. What would happen next? Well, the consequences of the Munich Beer Hall Putsch, the final section of this video. In the short term, the Munich Beer Hall Putsch was a failure. Of course it was. Hitler wanted to take control of Munich and eventually move to Berlin and take control of Germany. Neither of those things happened. Therefore, he has failed. Hitler has been arrested. He's on trial, charged with treason. Therefore, he has failed. The Nazi Party has been banned. It can't sort of try to take control if it's banned. Therefore, in the short term, the Munich Beer Hall takeover, the Munich Beer Hall Putsch failed. Great, no problem. But, remember I've said before, there's always a but in history. How important, how significant was it in the longer term? Did it fail in the longer term? Interesting. Well, here's a couple of things for you to think about. In February 1924, Hitler was put on trial, along with a few leaders, including Ludendorff, one of the top generals of World War I. And there's a very famous photograph. They are all stood outside the courtroom, and Ludendorff and some of the top Germans are wearing their old World War I uniforms and helmets. Hitler's there, standing proud, taking the photograph outside the courtroom. This is important. Yes, Hitler has been arrested, but he sees it as a chance. He sees it as an opportunity to spread his message. He's on trial for 1 month, 4 weeks, when Hitler was allowed by sympathetic judges to stand in the dock and give his speeches. And he's able to speak about all the things that were important to him. He stood up and said, yes, I tried to take control of Germany because I want something better for Germany. I think Germany has been let down. And then he ran through it all. The Treaty of Versailles, the stab in the back. He attacked the Weimar politicians and said, you're weak, you're feeble, you are ruining my country. You signed the Treaty of Versailles. You are the November criminals. And this message was reported in the newspapers. Hitler was becoming quite a famous person. So, he's able to use the trial to actually get his message out there. Of course, at the end of the trial, we need the sentence. Are you guilty or innocent? The judgment. Well, he's guilty. He's virtually admitted it anyway. And he said, yes, I tried to take over. So, yes, he is guilty. And the judges sentenced him. Remember, it's treason against his own country. Wow, it's a serious crime. The sentence? 5 years in prison. That was the minimum. 5 years in prison. I'll come back to his prison sentence in a couple of minutes. Now, new hat for us. Oh, yes. Oh, it's time for me to go to school. I'm the teacher. Hey. Now then, let's have a look at a couple of GCSE questions that they could possibly ask you about the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. Here's one. Explain why Hitler carried out the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. And they might give you a couple of clues. Ludendorff, French occupation of the Ruhr. So they've given you 2 clues. Write about the clues. Yes, Hitler needed the support of someone strong and famous, like Ludendorff, great World War I hero, giving Hitler a boost. French occupation of the Ruhr. That upset many, many Germans. Hitler was able to use that anger, use that shame, use that humiliation to say, I will give you a better life. I will take control of Germany and I will stop this. So there's 2 reasons. What else could you write down in an answer as to why Hitler tried to take over in 1923? Well, hyperinflation. German people losing all their life savings. The currency being worthless, the prices rising, people queuing for stuff. That made them angry. That made them feel humiliated. And Hitler saying, look, I can use that to gain support. Hyperinflation. The idea of the hatred. That's better. The idea of the hatred of Treaty of Versailles, the stab in the back. The Weimar politicians have ruined Germany. Hitler's able to tap into that feeling and try to get support for his ideas of taking over. And of course, following the example of Mussolini, who took over in Italy, Hitler's trying to do something similar. So there you could build a good answer as to why Hitler tried to carry out the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. Here's another GCSE question. Explain why the Munich Beer Hall Putsch failed in the short term. Why? Why did it fail? And again, they'll give you two clues. The Bavarian leaders and the German army. Von Kahr, von Lossow, Seisser, all ran away and turned their support away from Hitler. The German army and police on the streets actually stopping the Nazi party moving to the main square. You could write about how that would obviously stop the Munich Putsch. What else could you include? The local police refused to support him. The local people looked at it with apathy, said, we're not interested in that. So he hasn't got a groundswell of support from the Munich people. You could mention those. Also, yes, they had 2,000 rifles, but they were outgunned by the army. And you could argue that it was poorly planned. Hitler, yes, he took over the Munich Beer Hall, but what was his plan after that? March to the town hall, the main square? Then what would he do? And when the local leaders, the head of the police, the head of the army, the state governor turned against him, he still carried on with it. Was that the right thing to do? Was it bound to fail? There's some ideas for you about why it failed. But to return to the idea of the prison, and to return to the idea of did it really fail in the long term? As I said, 5 years in prison. Landsberg prison. Well, actually, it was quite luxurious for Hitler. He was allowed visits, he was allowed books, he could talk to Nazis in there. So the prison sentence wasn't that particularly difficult. And when he was in the prison, Hitler used the time to do a couple of things. One, write, and he actually wrote his book called Mein Kampf, which means My Struggle, and he laid out all of his ideas in his book, which he wrote in prison. I'll refer to that in a later video. He also took time to think. He said, right, I tried to take control of Munich to lead to control of the country, but it's failed. I have to learn the lessons. Why did it fail? And he quickly realized he was only operating in a local area, Bavaria, one region, Munich, one city. Hitler's working out plans to make the Nazis a national party. He also realized taking control by violence on the streets will not work. And he realized he had to change his tactics and move more towards elections and using the democratic system. So in the time when Hitler was in prison, he's able to come up with new ideas to plan a new way forward. Yes, his putsch failed in the short term, but would it fail in the long term? Interesting. So he's got his ideas, he's got his changes planned. What we have to do next is think about what actually happened when Hitler was released from prison. 20th of December 1924, Hitler is released from prison. He served 9 months, ladies and gentlemen. That was all. And he's released just before Christmas. Lovely Christmas present for him. He's released, he's free, and he's got his new ideas, and he's got his changes planned. He's ready for the Nazi party to move in a different direction. Well, would that direction work? Hopefully, if you look at the next video, we'll look at what Adolf Hitler did on his release from prison. As ever, I hope it's been useful. 1923, the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. See you soon. All the best now.